Before you step into this story, pause, take a breath. What if I told you that the greatest act of love in history was not written by kings or warriors, but by a man who chose to die so that the world might live? If you believe stories can awaken your soul, subscribe now, because this is the story of Jesus, the Son of God. The room was dimly lit by oil lamps. Shadows danced across the walls as the 12 disciples gathered around the wooden table. Bread and wine were placed before them, but the air was heavy, almost sacred. Jesus looked at each of them with eyes that carried eternity. "I have eagerly desired to eat this Passover with you," he said softly, breaking the bread in his hands. "This is my body, given for you. Do this in remembrance of me." The disciples looked at him, confused and troubled. His words were strange, prophetic. He lifted the cup. "This cup is the new covenant in my blood, poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins." The room grew silent. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. Somewhere in the corner of that silence, destiny stirred. Jesus' gaze moved to Judas. "Truly I tell you, one of you will betray me." The disciples gasped, their voices overlapping in disbelief. "Lord, is it I?" one asked, another whispered. "Who could do such a thing?" Jesus dipped the bread in the wine and handed it to Judas. "What you're about to do quickly." Judas's hand trembled. For a moment his eyes met Jesus's. There was no anger, only sorrow deeper than the sea. Judas stood and darkness seemed to follow him as he left the room. Jesus turned to the remaining 11. "Little children, I am with you only a little longer. Where I am going, you cannot come now, but love one another as I have loved you." The disciples did not fully understand, but heaven understood. The night was thick with sorrow. In the Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus knelt among the olive trees. The moonlight painted silver lines across his face. His hands trembled as he prayed. "Father, if it be your will, let this cup pass from me. Yet not my will, but yours be done." Sweat like drops of blood fell to the ground. Heaven was silent, but the silence was not absence. It was the weight of divine purpose. As he rose, torches flickered in the distance. The sound of soldiers. Betrayal had arrived. Judas led the soldiers, kissed Jesus on the cheek. "Rabbi," he said. That kiss, the mark of betrayal, echoed through eternity. Peter drew his sword, cutting off a soldier's ear, but Jesus raised his hand. "Put your sword away. Shall I not drink the cup my Father has given me?" The soldiers seized him. Rope bound the hands that healed the sick. Chains enclosed the wrists that had lifted the broken. As they led him away, the disciples fled into the night. Only Peter followed from afar, heart torn between fear and love. The courtyard of the high priest was cold. The crowd gathered in the flickering light of torches. Jesus stood there, his hands bound, his robe torn, his silence louder than any defense. They accused him of blasphemy, of claiming to be the Son of God. The high priest shouted, "Tell us, are you the Messiah?" Jesus raised his eyes and said, "You have said so, but I tell you, from now on, you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of power." The crowd erupted in rage. They spat on him, struck his face, mocked the king who never raised his voice. Peter watched from the shadows. 3 times people asked, "Weren't you with him?" And 3 times fear won. The rooster crowed, and Peter wept bitterly. At dawn, they brought Jesus before Pilate, the Roman governor. "This man claims to be a king," they said. Pilate looked at him and asked, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus answered, "My kingdom is not of this world." Pilate found no fault in him, but the crowd roared, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" Pilate washed his hands. "I am innocent of this man's blood." Yet with that act of surrender, prophecy was fulfilled. They placed a scarlet robe on Jesus, pressed a crown of thorns upon his head. Blood ran down his face, yet his eyes, oh his eyes, still shone with love. The wooden beam was heavy, rough against his torn shoulders. The road to Golgotha was long, lined with jeering faces, yet he walked, step by step, for love. A woman in the crowd wept. Veronica, they say, wiped his face, and his image stayed upon the cloth. Jesus fell once, twice, and yet he rose each time, the cross pressing deeper into his flesh. On a hill beyond the city walls, soldiers raised the hammer. The sound of iron met the wood, and history held its breath. They nailed his hands, the very hands that healed the blind, lifted the broken, blessed the children. Each strike of the hammer echoed through the heavens. They nailed his feet, the same feet that walked on water, that carried the message of hope to the lost. The cross was lifted, and there he hung, between heaven and earth, between love and judgment, between life and death. People mocked him. If you are the Son of God, come down from the cross. But he stayed. Love held him there, not nails. Darkness began to cover the land. From noon till 3, the sun refused to shine. Creation mourned its creator. A thief beside him whispered, "Remember me when you come into your kingdom." Jesus replied, "Today you will be with me in paradise." Then, with his final breath, Jesus looked to heaven and cried, "Fulkitin, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." The earth trembled, rocks split. The veil of the temple tore in two, from top to bottom. The world changed forever. Soldiers fell to their knees. One of them whispered, "Surely this was the Son of God." Mary stood at the foot of the cross, tears streaming down her face. She wanted to run, to hold him, but could only whisper his name, Jesus. As his head fell forward, the wind stilled, the heavens were silent, and in that silence, the greatest love the world has ever known was poured out. The body of Jesus was taken down from the cross, wrapped in linen, laid in a borrowed tomb. A stone was rolled across the entrance, sealing the silence of the world. The disciples hid in fear. The streets of Jerusalem were quiet, heavy with despair. The teacher was gone. Hope, it seemed, had died with him, but heaven was not silent. Even in death, divine purpose was alive. The story was not over. It was only beginning to breathe. At dawn on the third day, Mary Magdalene came to the tomb. The morning air was cold, the sky painted with the first light of hope. But when she arrived, the stone was rolled away. The tomb was open, empty. Fear and wonder fought within her. "They have taken my Lord away," she cried. Then she turned and saw a man standing nearby. He said softly, "Woman, why are you weeping? Whom do you seek?" She thought he was the gardener. "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have laid him." And then he said her name, Mary. In that single word, the universe shifted. She fell to her knees, tears turning to joy. "Rabboni," she cried, "Teacher." Jesus smiled. "Do not cling to me, for I have not yet ascended to the Father, but go and tell my brothers, I am alive." The news spread like fire. Death had lost its power. The tomb was empty, but the world was full of life again. Days later, the disciples gathered on a hillside in Galilee. The wind whispered through the grass as Jesus appeared before them, radiant, whole, alive. They fell to the ground in awe. "Peace be with you," he said, and peace, real, eternal peace, filled their souls. Thomas doubted. "Unless I see the nail marks in his hands, I will not believe." Jesus turned to him, showing his hands. "Touch and believe. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet believe." Thomas fell to his knees. "My Lord and my God." Jesus' eyes shone with compassion. "Go into all the world and preach the good news, for I am with you always, to the end of the age." On a mount called Olivet, the disciples stood once more with their risen Lord. The sky burned gold as the sun descended. "It is finished," he had said on the cross. "But now," he said, "it has begun." His hands, once pierced, were lifted in blessing. "You will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes upon you." And as he spoke, light wrapped around him. The earth could no longer contain his glory. He rose, ascending into the clouds, returning to the Father. The disciples watched in silence. Sorrow and joy mingled in their tears. The story of salvation was now theirs to carry. Centuries have passed, yet the cross still stands. The stone still rolled away. The voice that called Mary still calls your name. Jesus is not a story of the past. He is the living truth of the present. He conquered death, not with power, but with love that refuses to die. Every sunrise whispers his victory. Every heartbeat echoes his promise. And every soul that believes becomes part of his resurrection. If this story touched your heart, don't let it fade. Let it live in you. Subscribe now and join us as we continue to tell the story of Jesus, the King who died for love and rose for eternity. Because the cross was not the end, it was the beginning of everything new.